the knowing part also must be authenticated. Also, the self-authenticating part would have no fruit, and knowers must have results, or fruit. It cannot be said that the seeing part of consciousness is the fruit of the third part, because the seeing part is sometimes categorized as non-direct perception. Consequently, the seeing part of consciousness does not authenticate the third part, because that which authenticates its own substance must be direct perception. Of these four parts, the first two are external, and the latter two are internal. The first part, the seen part, is only an object of perception, while the last three are both subject and object. Although the second, seeing, part always has the first part as an object, it may function as a means of knowing or it may not, and sometimes it knows through direct perception and sometimes through inference.
The third part of consciousness can have as its object both the second and the fourth parts. The part that authenticates self-authentication has only the third part as its object, never the second part, because there is no need for it to do so. The third and fourth parts are both categorized as direct perception. Therefore the mind and its activities are formed from the union of these four parts, which form subject and object, without falling into an infinite regression. They are neither identical nor different, and therefore the principle of consciousness only, vijriaptimatra, is demonstrated. Thus a verse from the Ghanavyitha Sitra says,
"The minds of being are of two natures, all divided into internal and external. They are bound up with apprehending and being apprehended. The seeing part is distinguished in several ways. The verse says that beings' minds are composed of the union of the two parts. Whether the parts are internal or external, they are bound up with apprehending and being apprehended. The varieties of seeing include knowing or not knowing, either direct perception or inference. Here, seeing refers to the seeing part of consciousness. These four parts may be seen only as three, because the fourth part may be included in the third part. Or the four may be reduced to two, because the last three are all subjects with objects, that is, all three are the seeing part. Seeing means having objects. Or they all may be reduced to one, because they are one in substance. A verse in the Lankavatara Sitra says,
"Mind, attached to itself, evolves resembling an external realm. What is perceived by mind does not exist, and therefore there is nothing but mind." Thus, in many places in the scriptures, it is said that there is only the one mind. One mind also includes mental activities. Therefore, the mode of activity of consciousness is perception, and perception is the ceasing part of consciousness. 13. The object of perception. The word location, in the 30 verses, means that as a result of the maturation of its common seeds, the consciousness that is retribution transforms to resemble images of an external world, such as form, sound, etc., that is, the external great elements and their derivatives. Although the worlds transformed by various beings are different for each, their characteristics are similar, so that there is no difference in the place that they perceive, just as the light of many assembled lamps seems to be the same light.
Whose consciousness as retribution transforms into these characteristics? One interpretation is that it is everyone's consciousness. Why? A scripture says, "They arise all together through the overwhelming power of the action of living beings." We refute this by saying that if this were so, then the consciousness of Buddhas and Bodhisattvas would transform into this impure world, and the consciousness of ordinary beings would transform into the pure wonderful lands of this realm and elsewhere. Also, the holy ones, disgusted with the world of form and removed from it, born in the formless world and never departing it, would have consciousnesses that transform into this impure world, and what would be the point of that? Therefore it is the consciousnesses of beings born in this world, or who will be born into it, that transform into this apparent world. The scripture quoted above means only a part of sentient beings when it mentions all, because, their karma being the same, the transformation of consciousness is common to all.
However, there is an objection. If this were so, then when the world receptacle is destroyed, at the end of the eon, and no one is left, nor anyone to be reborn in it, whose consciousness as retribution would transform into this realm. Also, beings who are disgusted with the realm of form and have left it to be reborn in the formless realm have immaterial bodies, so of what use would it be for them to evolve a world in advance of rebirth? If we concede, with the Mahasamgikas, that there are distinctions of gross and subtle, etc., between those with immaterial bodies and different world receptacles, with no mutual support, then what would be the value of a consciousness in the formless realm transforming into one of these world receptacles? However, the world receptacle that evolves is basically the support of, and is for the use of, those material bodies, and therefore the world evolves in such a way that it can support and be used by those bodies. Consequently, we affirm that a consciousness born in a certain world can be born in the same kind of world elsewhere by transforming into that world. Thus a world receptacle about to be destroyed or about to appear, even without any sentient beings in it, can exist, because of the transformation of consciousness in another world. With regard to this world being the support of, and being used by, beings in common, demons, celestials, and humans see the world differently and thus enjoy it differently, but you can understand this on the same principle as above.
Seeds refers to all the impure seeds held by the consciousness that is retribution. They are included in the nature of this consciousness and are therefore its object of perception. Although pure seeds are connected with this consciousness, they are not included in its nature, and therefore they are not its perceptual object. Even though they are not its object of perception, they are not apart from it, just as ultimate reality is not, so this does not conflict with the principle of consciousness only. Body provided with organs means that because of the power of the maturation of seeds in the consciousness that is retribution that are not common to all individuals, consciousness evolves into the material organs in the place, i.e., body, that supports the organs, in other words, the internal great elements and their derivatives. Because of the power of the maturation of common seeds, consciousness evolves into the apparent existence of other beings. If this were not so, one would not experience other people. There is an opinion that consciousness evolves into the apparent sense organs of others, because the Madhyanta Vibhaga says that it appears as the 5 sense organs of oneself and others. However, there is another opinion. Even though consciousness evolves as if it were a supporting body, the organs of someone else are of no use to oneself. The statement of the above treatise that the 5 organs of oneself and others appear means that oneself and others evolve the organs from their own individual consciousnesses. Therefore, when one is reborn in another world or enters nirvana, the surviving corpse is still visible to us.
The distinction of internal body, world receptacle, realms, and spiritual stages is the result of the evolution of consciousness through the power of karma. If world receptacle and body evolve through the power of samadhi in the like, then there is nothing definite causing realms, stages, self and others, etc. The body and world receptacle that evolve in most cases continue in an unbroken series, but light, sound, etc., that evolve from consciousness often last only a short time, because their appearance is the result of contemporary conditions. This has been a brief discussion of the objects that evolve from consciousness, i.e., the impure seeds, the 10 material sense bases, Ripayatana, and the real form that falls into the category of the sense base for dharmas, Dharmayatana. Why does this consciousness not evolve as mind, mental activities, etc., and take them as objects? The transformation of defiled consciousness is of 2 kinds, transforming due to the power of causes and conditions, and transforming due to the power of imagination. The first transformation must have a function, and the second is always an objective realm. The transformation of consciousness that is retribution always obeys causes and conditions.